Hi, I'm Brandon, and welcome back to Tansson TV Plus.
And Mom, thank you for joining us again today. We welcome you back to our Friday first episode, and today we're going to talk about Barney Miller, which it goes along with our theme of talking about our detective series and also police comedies or dramas.
Yes, and we're going back a little bit. We're going to 1975 with the first episode of Barney Miller, and so I said we're very excited to bring you this episode. And Mom, you can go ahead and head straight into the synopsis of this first episode, Ramon.
Alrighty. For synopsis wise, this is going to be very, very brief. We're introduced to Barney, and then in the police, and I'll get into that in a little bit more depth in a little bit. But for the police drama part of it, where we come to is that Barney goes to work, and there's a young man who is there who is arrested. And this young man actually does get one of the guns, and he holds the whole crew there kind of hostage for a little bit. And then Barney's able to kind of talk him down, and they're able to kind of help him out a little bit. Although he is still arrested, Barney's able to offer him some advice. And so that's the episode in a nutshell.
Well, Mom, thank you so much for that.
You are welcome, Brandon.
Yes, and so what's interesting is, well, first of all, to give it a little background. So, personally, I have never really seen this show outside of about two or three episodes that we saw just about a month or two ago. And so, but before that, truly nothing outside the theme song.
Yep, and Brandon, I'm just like you. I did not watch watch the show growing up. I had not seen any episodes. It was just a couple months that we just kind of happened to be looking, and there was really nothing else on. We watched a couple episodes of Barney Miller, and so I thought it would be interesting for us to kind of look at this series a little more closely, or at least the first episode anyway, to kind of see what it really entailed.
Yes, and so I was a little surprised, by this episode. And at least for me, you can definitely speak about your own experience. But for me, I was a bit surprised of how the show started off, which was in Barney's home.
Yeah, I was very surprised about that. And this is one of the notes that I took. It's something that I kind of figured after watching, two or three of these episodes, first episodes about police series, and then some other ones that we've done off camera. Really, because of the amount of characters that are kind of introduced in all of these police dramas, we noticed that they have to have a core group, and the audience needs to really like and trust this core group. And group of characters, in order to do that, they have to establish it very, very early. Because these other side characters are just there for one episode, maybe two. But so what I noticed about Barney Miller, which I thought they did a great job in, was establishing at least one of the characters very well initially. And then eventually I have a feeling we'll learn about the other characters. But at least for this first episode, because the title is called Barney Miller, we get to learn about Barney and his life. And this is how the episode begins, is really about his life itself, which is something out of the couple episodes that we've seen. And then also with, bits and pieces that we've seen along the ways over the course of the years, I didn't even know Barney was married.
Yes, and the episodes that we'd seen a little earlier, I heard him speak about like his marital like problems a little bit, but just in passing. And so it was definitely quite a shock when I saw that, his family was there, and and the actress that played his wife was in the theme song as well. And so yeah, but I will say that even though this is a part of course, our sort of crime solvers month, for our first episodes, is that unlike the other ones, which are typically dramas, this one's actually a sitcom, another situational comedy.
Yes, it is a sitcom. And one of the things that I found was interesting was the relationship he did have with his wife, which they did leave it at the comedic level, at least at this point in the series. However, we do learn that Barney's wife does not want him to be a police officer, and that she's really kind of, I don't want to say discouraging it, but she's just not in favor of him being a police officer.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit of a common theme here too, because I believe just last week when we were speaking about T.J. Hooker, he is separated from or divorced rather from his ex-wife who did not want him to be a police officer, and both of them speak largely to, I guess, rising crime rates and everything as to why, not necessarily why they are police officers, but rather why they continue to be police officers.
Yeah, and you could tell that Barney really does care for his family. They established that early on. I think even the series takes place in New York, and they do have bars on their window, but he said he did that to protect his family. So you could tell that he is someone who does care about his family. They even show his children, and they have a little. I thought they had a significant role for the first episode. What were your thoughts about that?
Yeah, they definitely did, and I like that both of them are sort of characterized a little bit differently. His daughter seems to be a bit on the older side, and is currently dating and out and about. His son is a lot younger, but you sort of see sort of the relationship he has with the both of them throughout the episode. And as you mentioned before, is that for these first episodes, you're trying to, especially for pilots, which this is not necessarily a pilot, but a lot of times for the series premiere, you have to sort of introduce what you're going to expect for the series. But you can only do but so much. And so, since the show is indeed called Barney Miller, you get to see the relationship he has with them, even if it's just a glimpse for this episode.
Yes, and then we also get a glimpse not only of his family, but we get a glimpse of his job also, um, and the interaction he does have with this group that he does work with. This series itself is set in a very to me a very small police um, a, an area there, and so it's to me it seems very condensed. But the jail is in there, and then he has not just two or three people there who work for him. There seems to be a little group who work for him. They go in and out, and so by having them all together with this per se hostage sort of situation, you're able to learn a little bit about each of the characters that are there. And so I thought they did a nice job of, introducing them, even though they're not saying too much about each of the characters, you do learn about them.
Yes, it definitely is a smaller precinct. And what's interesting is that for the characters that we all sort of know and love in the sense of, the ones we're familiar with from the few episodes we've seen, is that while they are in this episode, they are not main characters.
No, they are not main characters in this particular episode. And actually, for the show itself, I'm not necessarily sure if they really are main characters. They're really an ensemble cast, and I think did a nice job of working together as an ensemble cast.
Yeah, and so within this first episode, we do have Barney as a main character, his wife Liz, I believe detective named Fish. Um, let's see, I forgot the name of the character that Max Gale plays, and then Shano.
Yeah, but it's Wojo, I believe, is the character that Max Gill
Yes,
plays. Yes. And there's another character on there also. I think it's Yamana who's on there too.
yes. Although for this first episode, at least for the first season, is that some of the other characters like Harris and Yamana were shown at the end as recurring characters. But I do know later in the series they are main characters.
Yes, yes. And that's one thing I do like about the theme song. The theme song I think, is catchy. It's instrumental, and that's what I'm finding with a lot of these cop shows. They seem to be instrumental type of TV themes, but it's very catchy and it is memorable for those people who've watched it, who have seen this episode before. They tend to know this theme song.
Yes. And so, yeah, but it's really interesting, as I diving into it. And I like that it's sort of, I don't know if it's exactly 50-50, but to me it feels like in terms of, showing Barney's life at home and at his job, being able to see, him with a little bit of a balance. But I kind of like that the recurring, like the guest characters, that later became regulars were able to have a chance to shine in this episode, because I know a lot of times, you really just see whoever was intended to be, the main characters and not necessarily some of the side people. So I like that it truly was an ensemble, like you said.
Yes, yes. And each of them had a little different relationship with, of course, there was only one person in this episode, but each of them kind of had a different relationship with this one person.
Yeah. And I guess the question I'll ask for you, Mom, is for this being a first episode, the series premiere, do you believe that this was a good start for for this series? Do you think it adequately sort of prepared us for future episodes, future installments?
I think it does. I thought they did a really nice job. They kind of, by having the ensemble cast there, it shows that we know that at some point in time, every one of them will have some sort of storyline that pops up for them, and we'll learn about their past or whatever we need to know about them. But then by showing his family, it shows that, Barney does have another life out there. We just don't know quite what that is, but he does have another life.
Yes, and we've seen so many of these series premiere now, well over 50, and and I would say too that having seen so many of these first episodes, there's certain ones that whether or not it's enjoyable is another thing, but some that feel really dragged out, some that feel too short. But I think this one sort of hit that sweet spot because it was an enjoyable watch for me, at least all the way through. And for me, I think I would easily watch another episode.
Oh yeah, I will watch another episode too. And I'm sorry it took me this long to kind of discover it, but yeah, I will watch more episodes.
Yeah, and I was just going through my notes to see if there's anything else. Oh yeah, and we do get a mention that, of course, that Barney's wife repeatedly sort of has these sort of demands for him to get a new life, and the one for I guess this week is for him to move to Montana and have a chicken farm.
Yes, we do hear that. Well, and then another thing that's interesting also is his daughter, and not so much the daughter itself, but the fact that she's dating someone who's a lawyer, which kind of keeps it all in the family in regards to keeping the detective slash lawyer slash kind of going together.
Yes, and I believe that they said he's a pro bono lawyer at that.
Yeah, they did say that.
Yes, and let's see. And also too that Barney does not want his son to per se idolize cops in the sense of not understanding like the responsibilities, and he wants him to understand that the badge and the weapon have responsibilities attached to them, and that they're not just playthings.
Yeah, they did a really nice job of doing that too. They truly emphasized it with the son.
Yeah, but like I said, but even though that this first episode and some of the other episodes we've seen can get serious at times, I like that it's still a sitcom at heart, and that it's still it still seems a little playful at times, and not just like flat serious all the way to or too silly. That it sort of hit that middle ground.
Yeah, it did hit the middle ground for us.
Yeah, and like I said, though, so is there anything else that you want to discuss for this first episode series premiere of Barney Miller?
No, Brandon, I can just say that I'm really kind of enjoying this series, and we can't wait till we talk about next week's episode.
All right, well, that sounds good. And I will say, as a little bit of as a connection, though, is that for one of the officers, and this one as a recurring guest and as a future series regular, is that one of the officers, Harris, played by Ron Glass, he was actually in the first episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. we spoke about last month, and that one he was Coulson's doctor.
Oh, yes, he sure was. Yeah, I like the way you're able to find all these connections, Brandon.
Yes, and I know that you're familiar with one of the other officers.
Oh, yes, I am. I'm sorry, it took me just a moment, but Max Gale, because Max Gale played Sonny Corinthos' father on General Hospital. So those of you who are following along on General Hospital, there's Max Gale when he was much younger.
Yes, and definitely tune into our Port Charles chats as well that we do on Sundays.
Yes, yes. And for those of you who aren't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe to us so that you can continue watching or be notified as we continue our Friday first episode series.
Yes, well, I hope that you, let's say, continue following us. And Mom, this is a pleasure as always. And for those tuning in, I hope that, like I said, that you keep tuning into us every week.
Yes, everybody, have a great day.
We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.